The book of Revelation is unique. A wise preacher once said that there are two books the devil hates the most. First, the book of Genesis, because it reveals the true nature of the devil. Second, the book of Revelation, because it shows us where the devil is destined to go, the lake of fire. The book of Revelation also reveals the future direction of the world. As you read it, you can see that the events described 2,000 years ago are gradually coming to pass. The 9th chapter of the book of Revelation provides a remarkable glimpse into the spirit world, where the spiritual realm spills over into our physical world. This chapter is likely one of the most controversial in the Bible. The late Wilbur M. Smith, who specialized in studying the book of Revelation, once wrote, "It is probable that, apart from the exact identification of Babylon in Revelation 17 and 18, the meaning of the two judgments in this chapter represents the most difficult major problem in the Revelation. This chapter reveals to readers two terrifying armies released to cause havoc, the army from the pit and the army from the east. Today we will focus on the army from the pit, specifically the bottomless pit." Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 to 12, has sparked significant controversy among biblical scholars. Some argue that this passage describes literal locusts emerging from the bottomless pit. Others believe it depicts the decomposing souls of the unsaved. Another interpretation is that John saw fighter helicopters, and due to his time period, he could only compare them to locusts. Yet another perspective is that the passage describes an army of demons that can only be likened to locusts. Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 to 12.
Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 through 12. "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion, when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men.
And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings on their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon. One woe is past, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter."
John, the man who was shown what will happen in the end times while on the island of Patmos, witnessed something spectacular. He saw that the beings emerging from the bottomless pit have a leader, a king who rules over them. This king is named Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek. The story of Apollyon did not start here. We have heard of this name before in various contexts. There are short films and videos titled Apollyon, and we may have heard of Apollyon the Destroyer. While the name is somewhat familiar, many people do not know who or what bears this name, the power of the entity, or what this being will do. Some people believe that the being John talked about is Satan himself, thinking Apollyon is another name for Satan due to the title the Destroyer given to this angel. However, Apollyon cannot be Satan, and I will explain why. The events leading up to this part of the Bible involve John witnessing angels sounding trumpets, each heralding a new disaster worse than the last. These events are part of a series of judgments. The 5th, 6th, and seventh trumpets are particularly significant and are referred to as the three woes because of the severe calamities they bring. Revelation chapter 9, verse 1 to 12, which describes the army from the bottomless pit, has been a source of intense debate among biblical scholars. Some argue that this passage describes literal locusts emerging from the pit. Others believe it depicts the decomposing souls of the unsaved. Another interpretation is that John saw fighter helicopters and, given his time period, could only compare them to locusts. Yet another perspective is that the passage describes an army of demons that can only be likened to locusts. John's vision reveals that these beings from the bottomless pit have a leader, a king whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek is Apollyon. This detail highlights the organized nature of this destructive force. The name Apollyon means the destroyer, which adds to the fearsome image of this entity. The description of Apollyon as the king of these beings raises questions about his identity and role. While some have equated Apollyon with Satan, this interpretation is not universally accepted. The differentiation between Apollyon and Satan is important for understanding the structure of evil forces depicted in the book of Revelation. Apollyon is portrayed as a distinct entity with his own domain and followers, separate from Satan. The fifth trumpet was sounded by the fifth angel, and something extraordinary happened. Revelation 9:1 states, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit." John witnessed a star falling from heaven. This star was given the key to the bottomless pit, a place described as a detention center for wicked angels or the demon world. It's also where Satan will be imprisoned for 1,000 years, as mentioned in Revelation chapter 20, verse 3. In Revelation 9, the pit is initially locked, but someone is given the key to open it. John identified this star as a being by using the pronoun he. The exact identity of this being who receives the key is not clearly stated. Some argue it is Satan himself, while others believe it is an angel. The precise identity of this star remains a subject of debate. Apollyon or Abaddon is an intriguing figure. He is imprisoned in the bottomless pit, waiting to be released. He is likely one of Satan's chief angels. Apollyon has the power to control demonic spirits and the authority to destroy. He is described as the king of legions of evil spirits that resemble locusts with the powers of scorpions. These creatures all emerge from the bottomless pit, highlighting its role as a prison for demons, Satan's angels, and various other malevolent spirits. The bottomless pit, therefore, is a place teeming with powerful and destructive entities. It houses demons, angels of Satan, and spirits controlled by these angels. The description of Apollyon as a leader among these malevolent beings provides insight into the organization and hierarchy of evil forces described in Revelation. Understanding the role and nature of Apollyon helps to comprehend the broader narrative of the end times as depicted in the book of Revelation. The release of Apollyon and his demonic army signifies a period of great tribulation and destruction, marking a pivotal moment in the unfolding of prophetic events. In summary, the fifth trumpet sounding and the subsequent release of Apollyon from the bottomless pit represent a critical phase in the apocalyptic vision described by John. This event underscores the immense power and malevolence of the forces at play and the profound impact they will have on the world. The fact that the Bible used the word locust doesn't mean they were ordinary locusts. If we look at the descriptions of these locusts, they looked nothing like locusts. Revelation chapter 9, verse 7 to 10. "And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. And they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months." These creatures described in Revelation do not look like ordinary locusts. Normally, locusts resemble grasshoppers with hind legs that allow them to jump. They do not have human heads, human hair, breastplates, or the shape of horses. This tells us that the description John provided is not meant to be taken literally. Biblical scholars believe John used the term locusts to describe these beings because of their destructive mission and their overwhelming numbers. What do locusts do? Simply put, they destroy plants. However, these beings will not be targeting plants. Typically, locusts swarm in massive numbers, often in the thousands or even hundreds of thousands, making them impossible to count. Similarly, the beings John describes will be numerous and destructive, but their targets will be far more significant than plants. This vivid imagery indicates that these beings are not ordinary insects, but rather symbolic representations of a powerful and terrifying force. Their mission is to torment humanity, not to destroy vegetation. The use of such detailed and fearsome imagery serves to emphasize the severity of the judgment and the unprecedented nature of the suffering they will bring. The leader of these beings, Apollyon or Abaddon, underscores the organized and intentional nature of their mission. Apollyon's name, meaning the destroyer, aligns with the destructive purpose of these locust-like beings. His release from the bottomless pit and the subsequent release of his army symbolize a significant escalation in the end times tribulation. Understanding the symbolism and purpose of these beings helps us grasp the broader context of the events described in Revelation. The torment they bring is part of the series of judgments unleashed by the sounding of the fifth trumpet. These judgments are progressively severe, highlighting the intensifying nature of the end times tribulation. The description of these beings also serves as a warning of the spiritual and physical realities of the end times. Their supernatural characteristics and the power they wield point to a period of unparalleled distress and chaos. This understanding calls for reflection on the nature of evil and the ultimate triumph of divine justice as portrayed in the book of Revelation. One of the most harrowing aspects of this passage is the description of people seeking death, but being unable to find it. Revelation 9:6. This imagery conveys a profound level of suffering where the torment is so great that death is seen as a preferable escape, yet it remains elusive. This scenario emphasizes the inescapable nature of divine judgment and the complete powerlessness of humanity in the face of it. The psychological and physical agony described here is unparalleled, depicting a situation where even the natural release of death is denied. This adds a layer of horror and despair, illustrating the extent of divine wrath and the total control exerted over human existence during these times. The sovereignty of God is a central theme in the book of Revelation, particularly evident in the harrowing descriptions of divine judgment. God's control over life and death is vividly portrayed in Revelation 9:6, where people seek death but cannot find it. This passage underscores God's ultimate authority over human existence, illustrating that even in their most desperate moments, humanity cannot escape His will. God's sovereignty is further demonstrated through the unfolding events in Revelation. Every judgment, trumpet, and woe described in the book is orchestrated by divine command, indicating that nothing occurs outside of God's control. The sounding of the fifth trumpet and the subsequent release of Apollyon and his demonic army from the bottomless pit are prime examples of God's meticulous planning and execution of His will. The release of these malevolent beings is not a random act of chaos, but a deliberate part of God's judgment against a rebellious world. This organized and intentional release signifies that even the forces of evil operate within the boundaries set by God. Moreover, the book of Revelation reveals God's sovereign timeline for the end times. The progression of events, from the opening of the seals to the blowing of the trumpets and the pouring out of the bowls of wrath, follows a divinely ordained sequence. Each event intensifies the tribulation, demonstrating that God has predetermined the course of history and its culmination. The specific duration of the torment inflicted by the locust-like beings, 5 months, reflects God's precise control over the extent and timing of suffering. In summary, the sovereignty of God in the book of Revelation is manifest in His control over life and death, His orchestration of apocalyptic events, and His predetermined timeline for the end times. This sovereignty underscores God's ultimate authority and power, reminding believers of His dominion over all creation and the inevitability of His divine justice.